All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Bokeh Podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Holritz. Happy Friday to you. It is, unfortunately, it's gotten cloudy here. We were enjoying like this just stunning, beautiful 60s weather with blue sky, and it's just fallen off a cliff. It's a little bit questionable at this point. In fact, it was actually snowing a little bit earlier, which is the weirdest thing. Anyway, it's Friday nonetheless. I'm excited about the conversation we're about to have. A brand new guest here on the Bokeh Podcast, and I'm going to introduce him here in just a second. For those of you that are live streaming on YouTube and Facebook, Bokeh Podcast, Bokeh Podcast, don't hesitate to jump in, ask questions, comment, get involved in the conversation today. This is going to be a really fun one. And then for those of you that are listening to the audio version of this, come join us sometime. If you follow us on Instagram at Bokeh Podcast, you can keep up to date with the upcoming live streams. And we're going to be doing on the average, probably maybe 1 to 2 a week coming up in the next few weeks. And then we're going to pull back just a little bit to 1 episode a week. So we'll do 1 live stream, push out an audio version as well. And we're going to go to 1 episode a week in the coming weeks. So you can just kind of keep that in mind, but stay tuned via Instagram, Bokeh Podcast, and you'll know the upcoming live streams. We're normally going to do those on Mondays in the coming weeks. So you can look forward to that. Okay. Just one last quick note. I'm going to pop up this little receipt for my donation to Charity Water today. And as always, as I promised you all, I would do that before each and every episode. Just an encouragement for you all to look for opportunities to give back. A little bit of money goes a long way. All right. I'm excited about this one today. I want to introduce my brand new guest. Rago Alasa is here with me. Rago, thank you for coming to hang out with me. We're going to have a lot of fun with this conversation today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really, really excited. Kind of nervous. My second podcast ever. So bear with me.
Hey, no need to be nervous. As I was saying to you before we get started, it's just a conversation. And for those of you that are regular listeners, you know this. I do send an outline to our guests ahead of time so they kind of know the direction the conversation is going to go. They can think through some of the answers to the conversation or to the questions ahead of time. But ultimately, I want this to be a conversation. I don't know, Rago, if you've ever listened to a podcast where it just feels like overly produced, overly canned. You feel like you're listening to a robot host. It just gets on my nerves. That's the last thing anybody needs right now. We want a sense of kind of reality and transparency and vulnerability, and trying to bring that more and more to the podcast. And I tend to be a little bit uptight, Rago. I don't know if you know that about me, but I want to learn to have a little bit more fun too. So I think we're going to try to make that effort. Certainly today anyway. We should have a lot of fun with the conversation.
You are fine, Nathan.
Well, let's actually give our listeners a little bit of context too. So we actually just met recently in person, and one of our previous Bokeh Podcast hosts, or a guest rather, I'll pop this up on screen. For those of you that haven't heard Jordan Caressis, Jordan episode 214 and then 428, Jordan actually hosts a workshop. And it has just this really committed group of photographers. The atmosphere was amazing. It was in Destin, Florida this year. And I got to go be a part of that, speak at that little workshop, and then also get a chance to meet you, Rago. That's where we met for the first time in person.
Yeah, you delivered such an amazing, inspiring presentation. It really lit up a fire under me. And yeah, it was a great encounter for me because it was my first time in doing a retreat, like a photographer's retreat. But yeah, it was amazing.
Well, it was a good, the thing about small retreats and workshops like that, and I think we need more of these in the industry where there's super intentional education, but then also a commitment to just genuine connection with people. It creates this stark contrast in experience between something like that and, for example, WPPI. And I found all kinds of value from WPPI. I've been going to it for, I don't know, about 20 years or so. It was the first time, 15 to 20 years ago, that I went for the first time. But unfortunately, WPPI, I think, represents where the industry, kind of the corporate side of the industry, has gone, where there's just this massive disconnect with the industry, the heart of the industry. Photographers want to connect with each other and feel a sense of community. And then, of course, ultimately learn through that community as well. And Jordan's workshop was just a beautiful example of that. So anyway, this isn't about Jordan's workshop today, but I had to at least give context to our listeners. I also have to say, your background might be one of the most impressive backgrounds that I've had from a guest to date. I mean, this is really cool background. Whereabouts are you?
I'm in Washington, D.C. So, hi, everybody. My name is Rago Alasa from Rago Images, LLC. I am a wedding and fashion photographer based in D.C., like I said. I've been doing this since 2015 till 2018 back in Jakarta, Indonesia. So that's where I'm from. I used to work in Jakarta and Bali at the same time, doing fashion, a little bit of wedding. And then I moved to the States in 2019 to establish my wedding photography business. And it's been quite a ride.
Well, and as you're talking about your brand and your brand position, I'm going to actually pull up your website. And for those of you that are live streaming, of course, you can see this. For those of you listening to the audio version, I'm looking here at Rago's website, Rago, RAGO images.com. The position statement right there, wedding and fashion photographer serving the DMV area, DC, MD, and VA, of course, Virginia, travel worldwide. And then weddings and fashion. And we're going to be talking today about the way that you kind of integrate and well, in some ways combine, but then also maintain two separate brands, which is kind of interesting. In fact, I want to ask you about that right now. We talk about brand position and the significance of having a distinct brand position to stand out in the marketplace. That becomes a little bit more complicated when you're essentially managing two different brands. I know this is a podcast episode in and of itself, but can you comment just briefly on how you're able to do that effectively?
Yeah, so I started out with a lot of different niches. Like all of us photographers, we started out doing everything, shooting everything. But then I've come down to these two entities, different separate business entities, fashion and wedding. I can't choose one over the other because they're all my babies. They're both my babies. And it is a completely different style of photography, but at the same time, you can actually merge them together. We could talk about it later, but yeah, I think it really speaks to who I am as an artist.
Sure.
So I am an artist first and then a businessman second. I've always been focusing on my artistry, but then this year, after the retreat and after meeting you, Nathan, I've been so inspired to focus on building my own business, my empire. So this is a great chance for me to learn because I will always learn, and I'm a forever student.
Well, you look like you're building an empire with that background. I mean, that's super impressive. Going back to your two brands, and I'll pop this up on screen as well for those of you that may be live streaming with us. So you've got your fashion Instagram account, Rago, RAGO Images. Of course, we'll link to this in the show notes at bokehpodcast.com for anybody listening in. But Rago Images, and then your wedding Instagram, which is Rago Images Weddings. And you know what? I think I left an S out when I popped that label up on screen earlier, but it's Rago Images Weddings with an S on the end. And we'll link to both of those in the show notes at bokehpodcast.com. Yeah, we're definitely going to come back to a conversation about how, I guess, the distinction between the two brands and what it means to shoot fashion, what it means to shoot weddings, but then to ultimately integrate those two and how photographers listening in might go about doing that. So we'll come back to that here in just a second. I want to transition to a different question. Customer experience. I'm curious, and I've not known you very long, Rago, but I've had the opportunity to interact with you in conversation enough to know that you're extremely personable, easy to talk to, super engaged. And so I'm sure that plays a role in the customer experience that you bring to your clients. But is there a big idea that drives a positive customer experience for your business?
Oh, stop it, Nathan. But keep it going. Thanks for the compliments. But
of course.
Yeah, that's just me. I'm a very bubbly, outgoing person. I've always been like this since the beginning of time. But that's a huge plus for our business to talk to clients in order for them to feel relaxed and to build their trust. To build that rapport. It's very important for you to be outgoing, and I'm very lucky to have that. But if we're talking about business standpoint, from my experience for over the years, the major key is that you have to learn how to compromise. Because sometimes us photographers, artists, we are very individualistic and we know what we want, right? But sometimes you got to sacrifice something in order for you to compromise with your clients. But at the same time, the other point is you have to set a clear boundaries. You don't want to get run over by the clients. Just because you can compromise, it doesn't mean that you have to lose yourself as a person. You gotta be able to maintain those two and meet in the happy medium. I feel
Sure,
like that's
sure.
the important part.
Yeah, that makes sense. But this is interesting to me because you said earlier that you were an artist first, a business person second. And I know that a lot of photographers, and I think you're kind of alluding to this, a lot of photographers who consider themselves artists, the notion of compromise is not a common point of conversation, right? This is how I think it should be done. How dare clients expect otherwise? This kind of egotistical mentality. So I'm curious how you've landed on this bit more of a compromise mindset when it comes to interacting with your clients. What does that actually look like tangibly, practically, like in that interaction or conversation with your clients?
How I ended up to this point by learning from an experience and a very unfortunate one. So I feel like the photographers or the artists need to feel it, need to experience themselves first in order for them to understand. Because I was like that before, and then after a couple of experiences, I learned firsthand like I gotta change. I gotta change. I gotta pivot. I like Michelle Obama said, keep your goals but change your method. I've been changing
Mm.
my method like 180 degrees. Like I'm not the same person with who I am 3 years ago. So I feel like you gotta experience it yourself in order for you to be able to do that.
Man, I feel like we could do a podcast episode just on that quote and what that means to you, to me, to what it should mean to people and photographers, especially in our industry. Keep your goals, be willing to change the method, be flexible. And I think that's really important. You also talked about the fact that you're not the same person that you were 2, 3 years ago. There's this obsession in our culture with quote unquote finding ourselves. And I think it's a funny notion for multiple reasons, but one is the very point that you just made, which is things change. And hopefully we aren't static either. We're actively changing, trying to be better and to grow. And this idea that this is just who we are is so limiting both in our personal life and professional life. I love the idea that you're both flexible as far as who, quote unquote, who you are, but then also what you're doing in business and keeping an open mind when it comes to interacting with your clients. And, the moment that we set that ego aside in any kind of relationship, personal or professional, man, it goes such a long way to being able to accomplish more, whether it's to build a closer relationship with somebody, a family member or a friend, or to build a closer relationship with our clients and ultimately build a business. I think that's really, really important. And again, we could park right there, probably talk for 45 minutes, but I'm going to keep the conversation going. I love that you made that point though. Talk to me about time management. And I know that running a business can be difficult. It can be busy, overwhelming at times maybe, but I'm curious how you are striking some type of balance between putting a lot into your business, but then also having a life and making time for the important people in your life.
Well, this is a hard question because I gotta be honest, I'm still struggling to maintain those two because I got burnt out many times,
Mm.
but I feel like the most practical way to do it is to set a schedule and follow it. I know it's easy to say, but it's hard to do. But at least if you have a schedule, if you want to procrastinate, you can always look back and see where you left off. If you don't have a schedule, you're just floating around. And also, I feel like your mental health it should always it should be the number one priority every single time. Choose your mental health over your work over anything, because without it, you won't be able to do anything. So I think in order for me to center myself and realign my state of mind is I like to do meditation. I
Mm.
like to meditate, and also I like to work out. I
Okay.
feel like when I go to the gym, sweat it out, and then I go home and then just sit down with my own thoughts. I'm back. Like I'm back in that center. That
Mm-hmm.
in order for me to do and tackle everything, because work work is never going to end. Like it's always going to be there. Excuse me. But it's you that you need to take care of, because without you being correct here, your work will just fall apart. I feel like.
Yeah, it's true. And yet again, in our culture, there's been this kind of obsession over how we feel and think, and the idea of self-care. I think you can also go so far with it, like to the extent, and I know from personal experience, by the way, so I can speak to it. It's easy to obsess over what's going on in here to the point that it becomes a problem when it doesn't actually need to be. I love the example that you give, which is the consistency in going to the gym and meditating, because you know that that translates to a healthier version of you that you can then take to business and to life. And just knowing what works and showing up and doing that consistently, I think that's a really healthy balance. It's not that I don't want to even come close to suggesting that we shouldn't pay attention to that. I think that our culture has gotten so obsessed as well with this notion of self-care that we've, in some ways, like the pendulum has swung a little bit too far. I think what you're suggesting is a really healthy balance as well. In some cases, I think there's been just such a level of self-importance and obsession over how we feel. And that actually is the thing that's getting in the way. It's not that we actually have such big problems at hand, but we do need to take care of ourselves mentally. I'm very much like you, getting to the gym, working out really hard. I mean, like really pushing, spending time in the sauna on top of that. Oh, I feel like $1,000,000 after I get done with that. And it really does kind of
seeing your...
What's that?
I love seeing your story at Ghost Gym or Planet Fitness every time.
Man, I need it. I mean, I need it for multiple reasons, but for that reason, if nothing else, it's just the kind of clarity of mind. And, not, again, this is a much deeper conversation, but I'm not sure that our bodies as human beings are made to sit in an office all day long. And I know that personally, even like right now, I'm standing at a standing desk. I have a standing desk and I work at a standing desk, and that's great. But even standing still, I don't think is real great for us. Like that movement is necessary. It gets the blood flowing. And I like the idea of pushing and working really, really hard. And there's a tendency, and I listened to a particular podcaster. I won't mention his name. He's a little bit controversial, but there's a particular podcaster that I listen to who talks about the importance of working out and how that tends to cut out the BS. Again, in a first world country where we've got everything at our fingertips and yet we're still complaining, I think a lot of that comes from the fact that we don't have legitimate challenge, right? We make up all these problems in our mind because we're obsessed over how we feel and think. And if we go and actually are willing to push ourselves at the gym, it kind of cuts that BS out a little bit. We're like, oh, here's something where we're actually having to work hard. And we put that effort and that energy in, we sweat it out like you were talking about, and it does kind of hit the reset button. And I think we all need to do it desperately.
Also, it helps carrying all those gears with you during weddings. Like
there's also that.
20 pounds, lenses, bench press really helped.
Oh, okay. Bench press, really? Okay. So I have to ask, what's your max bench press?
We're not talking about that today.
All right, fair enough. We'll keep going. Okay, so time management, delegation is an important part of this conversation. We talk about this quite a bit. Naturally, I own an editing company, so I'm going to talk about it for that reason, but delegation is applicable not just with editing. We're talking administrative tasks, album design, accounting, or otherwise. I'm curious if you've experimented with this concept of delegation in your business and found any benefit from it.
Actually, no. Up until after the retreat. So, like I said, it really inspired me to focus on my business. So that's why I've been scaling my business by hiring some people now. I'm in the process of doing it. So before, I'm like a one-man show. I do everything. Basically I did everything. But now I feel like it's important to train other people and to trust them. It's hard for me to talk about this because I'm such a control freak and a type A person, and I have trust issues. But again, like I have to change my method. I have to do what successful people do in order for me to achieve my goal. So at the retreat, I saw you. Like yesterday, I talked at another podcast, Christora and Tom. They've scaled their business to the point where they've had a lot of people under their wings, and that makes so much sense. And that's why I feel like Photographers Edit is such a great idea to help us photographers out there to get rid of the dirty work of culling and editing, so you can focus on the profit-making activities and like the artistry itself, because you as an artist, you want to focus on the things that is important. And Nathan will help you guys with talent personality.
Man, well, I didn't expect the shout out, but I really appreciate that. And it's actually true.
It's not sponsored. You didn't pay me.
Well, I hope we have the chance to work together at some point, Rago, in that regard. But I do appreciate the kind words. And it is true. That there are different angles that you can look at delegation from, as far as the benefit that comes from it. Some people just want time to watch Netflix, right? Others might want time with their family or their friends. Others might want more time to build their business. Others might want more time, to your point, to just be an artist, like to actually get back behind the camera and take pictures and not have to sit mindlessly for hours on end in front of their computer until 2 a.m. doing busy work that sure has to be done, but doesn't require their involvement, and it's not building their business. Also, to your point. So yeah, you make some great points there, and I do appreciate the kind words and the shout out. Let me keep going though. Talk to me a little bit about an impactful business book, self-help book that you've read or listened to that you would want to recommend to our listeners.
Oh my God, there's so many. And I got a lot of crap from my friends for having those books in my shelves where every time they come, they're just rolling their eyes. Oh my God, you're reading self-help book. I'm like, who cares? It helped me.
Yeah.
So I just finished reading Rising Strong by Brené Brown because I needed that because I came to the United States starting from scratch, and there you go. That's the book. It really helps you to switch your mindset in terms of how you can come back strong. But also Atomic Habits by James Clear is also a good one. I feel like a lot of people probably have talked about it, but it works for me. A lot of books don't work for everybody. You got to find books that work for you. Like try a couple of, like maybe the first 10 pages, see if you, this is too much, it's not for me, and then
Sure.
throw it away or delete it from your Kindle or whatever. But also, this is not a self-help book, but Sapien and Homo Deus by Yuval Noah Harari. Hopefully that's how you say it. It's like such an amazing book. I feel like it's the best book I've ever read or listened to ever in my life because they talked about humanity since the very beginning up until today. And I feel like you gotta think holistically in terms of life in order for you to understand who you are, what your business is all about.
Yeah.
Because you're in the business where you're going to meet a lot of different people from different backgrounds, and without a clear understanding, well, not clear, but like a little bit clearer understanding about where they come from, what's their story, you can talk to them in a wrong way, or and it's not good. It's not professional. So I feel like books like Sapien and Homo Deus is really, really important. Also, like for your own betterment outside of your business, so you can talk to people and you understand the context. You can read the room.
Yes.
And I think that is a self-help book in a way.
That makes sense.
So yeah, those three are my favorite.
Yeah, that's an interesting conversation. I tend to be a minimalist and overly simplistic at times, and it's got me in trouble at times too. And I've continually over particularly the last 3-4 years, maybe in the last 10 years or so, just learned to open my mind and to consider nuance more and more. And I think it's really important. You make a really interesting point about perspective. And I actually, Sapiens is in my library. I have yet to read it. I'm going to pull it up here on screen. I've yet to read it. It's a deep dive for sure. Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind. And then you also mentioned Homo Deus, A Brief History of Tomorrow by Yuval Noah Harari as well. And but yeah, I think the significance of perspective brought not just from kind of having our blinders on and our head down in our own industry, and that's all we ever expose ourselves to. Gaining wide-ranging perspective is so important. The flip side of that conversation that's a little tough too, though, is that we talk about like how human beings have kind of evolved over the years. I also wonder if we're truly capable of being able to consider the world at large. You think back hundreds, thousands of years, really, where we just existed in these small groups of people, and now we're considering realities that affect millions of people. And it can be overwhelming sometimes to try to take all that in. I'm like, today I just want to make sure that I actually follow my schedule and get the things done on my to-do list. And I'm now supposed to consider the reality of a million other people or millions of other people. But I think you're right. Adding some level of perspective, even if it's a little bit at a time, makes us better human beings, and it ultimately makes us better business owners as well. So I think that's actually really, really great insight. And then I'm popping this back up. Atomic Habits, an easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones by James Clear. And then Rising Strong, how the ability to reset transforms the way we live, love, parent, and leave by Brené Brown. So we've got a few recommendations there. That's awesome. And we'll put those in the show notes at bokehpodcast.com. By the way, Rago, I hope this is not, my mic actually doesn't tend to pick up a whole lot of ambient noise, but my stomach keeps grumbling because I haven't had any food yet today. So I hope that's not picking, are you hearing that in the mic in your ears?
Not that I know of.
Okay, good. All right, perfect. I'm like, man, I have to put myself on mute as you're talking because it keeps happening. I'm like, what in the world? This is crazy. All right.
I was like trying to find out like if you're joking or not.
No, I'm dead serious. Yeah. No, fortunately this mic here, which is a great mic, by the way, anybody who's ever getting into podcasting, this is an Audio-Technica mic.
It's amazing.
It's $70. Most people are going to like the Shure mics and some others that are $200, $300, $400 or whatever. $70. This thing is awesome. I've been using it for years. I've got like 2 or 3 of them. I can take them on the road with me. But it's good because it cuts out ambient noise. So I think in most cases, it's not picking up my stomach making those noises. That's good. Okay, let's keep going. A couple more quick questions, and then we're going to get into this conversation about kind of melding fashion and wedding photography. Talk to me about a favorite piece of gear in your camera bag. You are a photographer and artist at heart. I'm curious what this piece of gear would be.
Up until last few months, it's always 70 to 200.
Yeah.
But now I really love 15 to 35 for just elongate the legs of the models. So that's my favorite lens.
Okay.
But my all-time favorite is always 35 1.4. That's gonna be always it's still the EF version, so I will never get rid of it. But outside of lenses, I feel like color gels have been so good to me
Really?
to create some crazy, thought-provoking controversy, like artistry and stuff like that. So color gels, yeah.
Okay, so I'm actually scrolling through could we pop up an example of something on Instagram where you were using those color gels?
Yes.
On your fashion or wedding side?
On my fashion, like scroll down.
Yeah.
There's like a model.
Oh, right here.
The green, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Okay, so for anybody who's just listening to audio, if you go back to, this is an August 10th post on Rago Images, RAGO Images on Instagram, August 10th, 2021 post, and that's amazing though. So what's the thought process when you're using color gels in this case? Like what's the effect or the message that you're trying to convey with them?
So he's now my coach, my nutrition and fitness coach. He's super ripped, and he has this Under Armour underwear that I want to showcase.
Yeah.
Probably tag them.
Yeah.
Hopefully I land another underwear or Speedo commercial or editorial campaign. But in order for you to, just showcase his muscles, you gotta put them either overhead lighting with just like a normal lighting, but I kind of want to try a different thing. So I put 2 lights on both sides, but different color. And then it just sort of make him look like a Hulk version of himself.
Yeah.
And without trying too hard, I just tell him to, stand up at ease, and it looks amazing and crazy like that.
It looks really cool. And I love the idea, like you're seeing the Hulk side of him and the human side of him, and you've been able to communicate that, having the green gel on one side and then the regular lighting on the other side. That's a really cool concept. Okay. And then the other thing that you mentioned too, that really caught my attention, you were talking about using the 15 to 35 to elongate your model's legs. And it's funny, I don't think I've ever heard a photographer say that before. Normally there's this obsession over removing distortion. You're actually talking about using that so-called distortion in the lens to a benefit. Talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I haven't posted it on my Instagram yet because it's still in the process. The schedule is there, but I've been very inspired by like fashion designers, like huge fashion houses like Balenciaga, Victor and Rolf, Schiaparelli, where they use just like a weird mixture of a non-human like campaigns and like a concept. So they try to look, they try to make us viewers say WTF, you know what I mean? Like how could you do this?
Yeah.
But it looks crazy, and I think that's fashion. Fashion is very interpretive, but as long as it can evoke some certain emotions, then you're doing the right job. And I tried it to do it, and I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna keep doing this
Okay.
forever.
Okay. So when should we look for that post? What date is that supposed to come out? Do you remember?
Um, Next month.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. All right. So anybody who's listening in, and I just posted this up on screen again, but Rago Images, Rago Images. Make sure you follow Rago on Instagram, and you can see that post coming up. So let's talk about wedding and fashion photography and melding the two. For you, Rago, which came first, wedding or fashion?
You can do this to me, Nathan. This is I can't choose. But in
How about
order
chronologically
for
speaking, though? Like, did you start shooting
okay,
wedding first or fashion first?
fashion first.
Okay.
But at the moment, wedding is my priority because again, like the retreat, I keep talking about it. I don't know why, but it's my priority because I know it works using my knowledge of fashion. We can talk about how I do that, but yeah, as of right now, wedding.
Okay. So, but you started with fashion first, and you said this is back in 2015 that you started photographing, or did you start shooting before then even?
Correct.
Okay, 2015.
No, yeah, 2015, yeah.
Okay, so 7 years, that's a good amount of time, but it's also not super long, and you're super, super talented. So what even got you to that fashion or to fashion photography in the first place? And I know this could be a longer story, just kind of the brief summary, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so I actually started out as a digital marketing manager for a hospitality group. So like restaurants, hotels, bars in Jakarta, Indonesia. And they always have a lot of parties, uh, free drinks, free food, free parties. That's good for me.
Sounds like a good
I have
time.
no
Yeah.
complaint. Yeah.
Yeah.
But as a digital marketing manager, I need to produce content and I have to take pictures. So I started out with that and I got to meet like modeling agencies, celebrities, models at the parties. And that's how I started out my fashion um, photography career, shooting the new faces, the brand new models for their com card, and then I landed like catalog gigs and then some magazine stuff, and then I also do wedding on the side because of friends and stuff like that. But my core has always been fashion. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about fashion by itself. Can you share with our listeners what you feel are three driving factors, important principles behind really good fashion photography from your perspective?
Yeah, number one is definitely authenticity. Lean into who you are as a person. I know I used to hate myself back in the day because I was a gay younger man in fashion photography business and like the hospitality industry, and I was like, actually, it's the best way to do that. I am in the right industry,
Hmm.
and then I started out hating myself, and then now I'm kind of like lean into it, embrace it. Up to this point, I'm proud of it.
When you say you were hating yourself because of that, can you explain just a little bit more? I cringed a little bit because it sounds so harsh, but like what? Why were you hating yourself for that?
It's LGBTQ community, queer kids. We got bullied for being gay, for being lesbian, and stuff like that.
Sure.
It's really tough on you. You got to question who you are as a person. But after working professionally, and then making my own money, I understand that, oh, okay, actually, this could work. And now that I moved to the States, in Washington, D.C. is actually the densest gay population in America, not San Francisco, not New York, it's DC for,
Really?
I don't know, for some weird reason.
Okay.
It even elevates my work to a whole new level. Like,
Hmm.
so that's probably my niche, fashion photography or wedding photography that is very inclusive for all couples. I don't see, like, I mean, I take every couple's love is love, I believe. So that is probably also my brand position in the local market. And that also helps. So lean into your authenticity. And also, number two is like nerve. You know, you gotta have nerve in fashion industry. You gotta, like, to quote Mama RuPaul Charles, you gotta have charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent.
Hmm.
So nerve in fashion photography will drive you to create and produce stunning images, stunning concepts that probably people have done before, but you gotta find some way to make it your own. And then number three, probably wild dreams. Just like I've always based my photography concepts from dreams and from like just daydreaming and think about some weird things, and then combine it with just like refined, streamlined concepts, and it could create amazing content and images.
And I feel like those last two could almost kind of go together, right? It's that idea of when you're talking about nerve, I was thinking about taking a chance, doing something that's
Correct.
not safe, right? There's
Brave.
this
Be
funny
brave.
tendency in the photography, the wedding industry, and I think the portrait industry as well, in particular, to just kind of copy paste. Like we look around at other photographers that we like and or we see what the trends are or some combination of both and we just start kind of doing that stuff rather than creating something that's actually different. And it's hard. It takes work to create something that's different. And then it's a little bit nerve-wracking too to actually put something out there that's different. But that's what I think about when I think about the idea of nerve and then wild dreams, is just taking a chance and actually and going outside this little box that we've created for ourselves and doing something different. Is that what that means?
No, yeah, exactly. And I feel like people who are trying to reinvent the wheels are great, right? I'm all about it. Um, Also, like people who plagiarize like a full-on play-by-play
Yeah.
copy other people's work, it's not okay. So what you want to do is like meet in the middle, choose the wheels. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. The wheel is fine by itself, but add some flair, add some your own taste and vibe to it. So it's not like, because originality, I feel like, is not a thing anymore. Nothing is
Mm,
original in the
yeah.
world. It's just a bunch of other stuff mixed together to create a new stuff.
Mm,
That's my personal opinion.
mm-hmm.
So that's what I've been doing. So I look up to Patrick de Marchelier, Stephen Klein, all of these beautiful, amazing, talented photographers over the year, and then try to make it more modern.
And then going back to the first point, I'm taking notes here. I've got a little notebook, old fashioned style. But you're talking about authenticity, and I hear what you're talking about and being comfortable with yourself, and I think that's super important on multiple levels. But then I'm also curious because that word authenticity is thrown around so much in our industry these days, and just in the world at large. What is that? How does that translate, at least from your perspective, to the work that you're doing? What does that look like tangibly, practically?
Yeah, so for weddings, I tell my couples on my website, you can see it on my website, what separates me from other photographers. There's so many other talented photographers out there, but what makes me stand out? And I said, I'm a gay married photographer who is also doing weddings. It's that point itself explains how I take care of my couples to the point where I will consult you on what to wear, all the dresses, all the shoes, the accessories. I will make sure that the whole experience working with me from the first free consultation call all the way up until I deliver your images it's going to be full, thoroughly thought out process. And then I feel like that's me. I no longer pretend to be someone else. I no longer pretend to be a light and airy photographer because that's what is popular nowadays. I'm no longer pretending to be catering to certain people or certain demographic. I want to be accepted, so I want to accept everybody else. So I feel like I'm being empathetic to my work as well as myself. So I feel like that's how authenticity works for my business.
That makes sense. And I like how you break that down because it's easy for people just to throw that word out there. You've obviously thought through it. And to that point, I want to kind of direct everybody's attention, especially those that are streaming live currently. If you go to ragoimages.com and go to the weddings section, ragoimages.com/wedding, you can see this, my values. And Rago says, I believe good artists come with a set of values that define themselves in their everyday lives, and they apply them throughout their professional careers. These are something, by the way, I love that, Rago, because we talk about this quite a bit here on the podcast, the melding of personal values with our professional efforts. I think that's so important for not only sustainability, but to continue to bring that kind of passion that we talk about so much in the industry. I think that's super important. But Rago says, these are some of the most important values to me from the moment I say hi to you to the day I deliver your images, which you will cherish for the rest of your life. And then he talks about 3 values that are a theme through his business: efficiency, taste, and inclusivity, and explains those in a bit of text underneath. And man, that's really beautifully done. And I don't think I've quite seen, a lot of times photographers on their so-called about section, they just talk about themselves and their career and how they came up and all that stuff. This is just a different take and approach to it. And I think it's beautifully done. When we talk about this idea of authenticity, you communicate that really well. So major props to you for that.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So we talked about 3 driving factors behind strong fashion photography. Let's do the same thing with wedding photography. From your experience in the wedding business, will you communicate those principles as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like customer service is number one. For my experience working with couples for their weddings, only 20% I spent on the artistry and like the work, because 80% is just me replying to emails, getting on calls,
Yeah.
Answering questions, helping them choosing the right bouquet, like all those stuff that photographers or artists kind of hesitate to do. Like, oh my God, I'm too good for this. I'm too fabulous for this. Well, man, you got to do it if you want to earn that big fat check. You got to show them that you are a professional. You're in this industry for a reason.
Yeah.
And that is to help the couples to produce an amazing photos. And in order for you to achieve that, you gotta do the dirty work. Well, it's not dirty, but I mean, like customer service.
Because you gotta actually seem like you care, right? Like
yeah, exactly.
Like the customer actually matters to you, because again, if the ego gets in the way, it's not gonna come across. But if the focus is on service, then that gives you an opportunity as a photographer and a business owner to portray a sense of genuine care and concern for their needs, their desires, and ultimately giving them a really great experience. And man, it's as cliche as that sounds, it can't be missed, because we see too often in various industries where people just aren't cognizant of that. And in 2022, it's hard to get away with that anymore, because people talk, they put it out there if you're going to treat somebody poorly.
Oh, the reviews, the bad reviews is, oh my God. Yeah. That's another story. But
okay.
Yeah, customer service is the most important, I feel like. And then right after that, I feel like your work needs to evoke some type of emotions. Or at least that's for me. I don't care about a lot of pose pictures, like with the off-camera lighting behind them to create that. Like, I mean, it's beautiful, right? But I will focus on doing that. But I want to see their faces. I want to see their laughs, they kiss each other, but like I don't want to tell them how to pose. I just want to prompt them to do stuff, and I want them to be who they are. If they're goofy, be goofy in front of camera. Show me who you are as a couple, like that. Like
Yeah,
the little tongue. It's very genuine,
that is
and I
genuine.
love that. A lot of people prefer lightings, bro, over they love the rim light, the hair light, whatever. I think this is more important.
Yeah, for anybody listening
Because
in, and sorry to interrupt, Rago, just for anybody listening
no, it's
in,
okay.
especially on the audio side, of course, if you're live streaming with us, you can see this. And by the way, for those of you live streaming, we've got a few minutes left here, so don't hesitate to jump in and ask questions, make comments, and get involved in the conversation. But I pulled up on screen here from Rago's wedding feed. So it's Rago, Rago Images Weddings with an S on the end on Instagram. And this is a post from June 27th, 2021. Such a cool picture. And to your point, Rago, I agree with you. I've talked about this before, but I think like I could go do a full engagement session. I used to shoot engagement and wedding for over 10 years. I could go do a full engagement session in a Walmart parking lot. If I just had even this isn't fancy light, but it's nice, even light. You've got decent light to work with, but you get real emotion and you control the background with some nice bokeh like you've got there. And you've got a session. Like it is just, I love real raw emotion. And you're right. There's so much of the time, there's this tendency these days toward just posing and over posing, in fact. And if you think about it long term, when those people go back and look at those images, do they want the thing that looks like you were trying to make, like put them on the front of Vogue? Maybe a few, sure. But at the same time, in the context of a wedding and ultimately representing a relationship and connection and intimacy, what they really want to see is that connection and be able to think back to a moment. And this image right here is a perfect example of that. It's beautifully done.
Yeah, and I want to make sure that I highlight all of their outfits as well. Like that jacket, I want people to, all the girls, oh, where did you get that dress? Like, I always pay attention to the outfits as well,
Hmm.
on top of the emotions evoking poses and stuff.
Yeah, well, I
Um,
love how the colors tie together. There does definitely seems to be intention there, so that's also beautifully done.
Thank you. Yeah, talking about colors, the number three, I think, factor, the third factor is like consistent style in terms of editing. I feel like a lot of people have talked about this, and I completely agree. I've I've experimented with so many presets um, over the years, but now for a couple of years, I've been staying with one or two presets, and I just keep doing it. And you just gotta tune a few things,
Yep.
like the exposure, contrast, and that's it. Like highlights, shadows, but don't change your color. I feel like colors is so individual. Like it speaks to who you are. I feel like mine is like a very soft but sharp. Um, People do a lot of contrasty stuff. That's awesome, but I don't think that's for me. Like light and airy stuff, it's beautiful, but that's not for me. I feel like the white stuff from light and airy editing, it's more like a overblown highlights.
Yep.
My style is more like everything is exposed, but it's so moody. Like it's so soft.
Yeah, but there's a
Um,
sense of, and I'm scrolling through your
yeah,
Instagram, your wedding's Instagram account here. There's definitely a softness to it, but it's not so soft that it feels like 1980s soft focus filter. Like it's subtle,
yeah.
but it's really really nice, and it evokes a certain emotion. But you talk about moody, you're also not going to the extreme with like a dark and moody preset that in 3 years is going to look hilarious to us, right? Like that's a funny thing about trends
Yeah.
is, and I've been in the industry now for 20 years, so I can say this: we see the trends come and go, and I've having been a wedding photographer and an engagement photographer, I can still think back to one of my couples actually that I photographed, really great session. And like a year later, I'm looking at this album that I put together from their session, was sitting on our like a coffee table where I meet with our clients, and I start scrolling, like paging through this album. And I'm like, what in the world? This looks ridiculous. And I applied some ridiculous filter to the thing at the time that was popular, back in 2005 or whatever it was. And hilarious and kind of awful. So we have to keep that in mind. Like when we're applying these filters, not to go above or to the extreme, understanding that in 3 years and 5 years and 10 years, we want these images to still be enjoyable for those clients and not date them too much. I think that's really important.
No, I was there as well. Like I knew exactly what you're talking about. I was that guy.
Yeah,
But that's how you learn, right? And this is not me trying to bash everybody with their own personal choices and experience. If I've seen a lot of great light and airy photographers that is not overblown, like the highlights, the art. It's very well exposed, but it's still bright and clean. I think that's the type of light
sure.
and airy and like moody and dark and moody. It doesn't have to be shadowy either, but I can sense like, oh my gosh, like I want to go to this forest and I just
Mm-hmm.
want to be with this couple.
Mm-hmm.
So my point is like also natural. I feel like natural color, it's very tricky because some clients actually, I've tried, like I said, I've experimented. So I tried not to edit the colors. I didn't play with the hue, probably just saturation and darkness, brightness. And they asked me like, did you edit this? So that's why I was like, oh my God, okay, I'm not doing natural. So what I'm trying to say is like, my point is whatever you do, commit to it, perfect it, always refine it, and stick to it forever. Maybe in the future you want to change because I've done that too, and I'm not saying this that in the next few years I'm not going to change either. Probably I will, but I know when I change, I will change like 120%. Like I will commit to it because it explains who you are. It says about who you are as an artist. So please, please, please stay consistent.
Be consistent. Yeah, that was the word I was going to come back to. You're right, because there might be an opportunity for change, but we shouldn't be changing all the time. There needs to be consistency too. That's huge. Brennan on Facebook says, yes, I love the raw, real emotion and images. I totally agree, Brennan. And then Laura also said, that's a great point. Good photographer will take any environment and make it work. And I appreciate you both commenting on the conversation. Again, we've got a few minutes left in the conversation here. For those of you who are live streaming, don't hesitate to jump in. Really appreciate you listening in. I think we got 2 points here about wedding photography, Rago: customer service and develop work that evokes emotion. I love that. Do you have a third point as well?
The consistency.
Consistency. Yeah. So I'm taking notes again. So I'm going to write down consistency, and that really is huge. Okay, cool. All right. So I guess the last main question that I have for you then today has to do with the melding of these two concepts. And, I've seen it happen over the years. I know there are different approaches, different takes to it, but what are a couple of different ways that you have been able to take fashion photography, wedding photography, and kind of meld them together in a way that makes sense for your clients?
Yeah, the number one, the easiest one for you to do to make it look fashion forward or fashiony is the posing. The way you put your hands on your couples, like I want you to treat them as models. I want you to make them feel like they're Linda Evangelista for a day. I want them to feel like they're a baddie, like this photo shoot, this engagement photo shoots, or your wedding. I want them to feel like it's a fashion shoot. So posing is number one. But like I said, it's gotta evoke some certain emotion. But I like to take it to a whole different level in terms of fashion forward element to it. And then the other way is how you achieve it is angle. Angle is very important. I love to take a lot of photography, like images that are weird. Like so I love to go all the way down low or all the way up. Um, and then, but you got to make sure like the composition of the face, you don't want to show double chin and stuff like that. Or like some people are very aware about their body. So make sure also to talk to your clients about if they have insecurities, because I believe I've worked with all body types, um, different colors, different background, different beliefs, and it can work as long as you communicate with them. So angle and posing, I feel like how you merge wedding into fashion. But also on the fashion side, I feel like wedding is so helpful in terms of being consistent. Like you gotta have a routine, from consultation call to planning everything, like the engagement, and then blah blah blah. I'll do it until you deliver the photos, get the gallery to your clients, and you can apply that to fashion because fashion industry is very cutthroat. There's a lot of bitchy, petty models, designers, agencies,
Yeah.
and you gotta have that routine. Like you have to stick with that so you don't get run over because the movies about fashion are how they are bitchy and stuff like that. They're kind of true, not everybody, but in New York Fashion Week, I experience a lot of things, but I totally understand why they are the way they are because they're just doing their job, and you gotta be as fierce as they are so that you can earn their respect, and then you can be invited again next time because they see you as a professional, and that is actually how I could do it is because I do wedding as well because wedding is also tough. Um, it's not as cutthroat, but all the external factors like the rain, the weather, the crazy families, the bridezilla, it shape you into someone that is okay. Let's go. What do you want? You know what I mean? So you come into a wedding, you come into a fashion shoot, knowing who you are, and that is, I think, how you mix them together.
I'm kind of furiously taking notes here. So back to the wedding side, you talked about posing and then the significance of posing and angle of composition on the fashion side, taking from the wedding industry, developing a routine or workflow, super important, and learning how to not kind of fit into the mold of whatever is going on, but certainly being confident, though you're talking about who you are, but then learning how to go with the flow within that environment is also important as well. I want to jump back, and I know we could spend time on each of those points. We have limited time now, but I want to jump back to posing just briefly, if you don't mind. It's such a massive topic. But if you're talking about implementing some of these fashion poses into wedding photography, could you mention just 2 or 3 specific examples of how photographers might do that?
Absolutely. Shapes, create shapes. The S shapes is very important. So when a bride is wearing like a fit and flare dress, you want to make sure they bend their knees so it looks like it's creating an S shape. And also you want like to create like a triangle, so it looks like they're a piece of art. Like I feel like that's the most like the easiest way to do it. Also, like neck is very important. Um, when you elongate the neck of the brides or even the groom, it looks like it's very magazine proper way to put them in a photo shoot where they don't, maybe they're awkward in front of camera and they're not models, and that's okay because you are the one who are behind the camera. And so neck, the S shape, facial expression is also important. um, Smiling and laughing is awesome, but also I like to switch it up a bit. I just want them to be to stare in front of camera, be stoic, together next to each other. And I imagine, would this, would I, do I want to see this in a bridal magazine? So that's, I feel like the more feasible way to infuse fashion in weddings because there are a lot of bridal magazines and they are not real couples sometimes. They are models. And that itself is how wedding and fashion make sense together. They can merge together, and they can produce beautiful images.
And as you're talking about that, I pulled this image back up actually on screen. So for those of you that are just listening in, if you go to Rago Images Weddings on Instagram, January 31st post, Rago, tell me if I'm wrong here, but I'm seeing examples of what you're talking about. So first of all, that S shape, the way that the bride is putting weight on one leg and it creates a little bit of a curve. The triangle from the head of the groom to the corner of his arm, and then to his hand over on the right-hand side, you've got that triangle there. A little bit more of a stoic look. It feels very intimate at the same time. A lot of times fashion kind of forward images feel, I don't know, almost emotionless. I know that there's intention behind it, but I love kind of how there's this combination of both worlds here, and that it feels like one person commented, actually, like looks like such an intimate moment, and yet there is a certain element of fashion to this image as well.
Yeah. Also, if you look at Instagram, it's going to be different with the whole gallery, and it's important that your clients can see that in your photo gallery as well, because they are the ones that need to be impressed by, like they need to be impressed by you and your work. I was talking about like the entire cohesive um, gallery style.
Interesting. Okay.
So if you look at all hundreds of photos together, you can see, okay, there's probably some stoic ones, probably some emotion full with joy and love, and they can go hand in hand. So that's what I meant by putting and infusing the fashion into the weddings as well, as the other way around. When you do fashion, the whole gallery that you send to the modeling agencies or to the brand, like the designer, it's got to have all of the things that you believe in. And what I believe in was that those two categories, like the posing and the angle, but as well like the emotion and the authenticity.
Now, we've got a couple of questions from the audience here as we get ready to close. Rachel says, hi, another DC wedding photographer here. I've found the wedding industry is very saturated. Do you have advice on building relationships with other wedding vendors? And this is a great question, Rachel. I know it's a big topic too, Rago. Maybe just a thought or two in regard to that particular question.
Yeah, every time I go to a wedding, I will always shake hands to everybody. The planners, the wedding uh, flowers vendors, like the DJ, the videographer. There's a lot of weird like stories about videographer and photographer, like they're fighting. I have never had that experience before. So yeah, just make sure to introduce yourself every time you go to a wedding.
Yeah.
Um, be genuine, be bubbly. Don't try to force it either. So just shake hands, say hello. If they're nice, then perfect. If they're not, goodbye. You don't want to deal with them anyway. And then always exchange contacts, and then always follow up the next day or the next week to say hi, nice to meet you, and stuff like that. I feel like it's hard to do if you don't build routine. Um, Sometimes I forget as well, so I need to also tell myself to do it every single time.
Sure.
But yeah, be genuine.
No, that's really good, actually. And it's funny how, I think I just said this in the podcast the other day too, but I just find it amusing how in business, even in 2022, whether it's 2022 or 20 years ago when I first started, how a lot of times it's the basic principles done consistently that generate genuine results. And that is true. I mean, so much of what drove our business as wedding photographers back in the day was those relationships. And it comes from not just putting on a robotic face and going to networking events and putting on a fake smile and shaking hands and handing a business card, because people can read through that. It's so obvious,
Yes.
and it's so gross sometimes even. So like actually showing up, and we were talking about showing our clients that we genuinely care, actually showing genuine interest, being interested in the people that you're talking to, that comes across, and it makes such an impact. I've had the incredible opportunity to be on the other side of people who've said, you made me feel like you actually cared, like you're engaged, like you're interested. I've never had people, go there and ask these kinds of questions to me before. And it comes from a genuine place for me. I love connecting with people. And if that doesn't come naturally for those of you listening in or watching, make a little bit of an effort, but it will go a long way when you do. So I think that's super great information and suggestions. And then Laura is saying, any tips for posing heavier brides? I have a client tomorrow that is very insecure about her weight. And she added to that, posing a plus size bride has a lot of insecurities with her face. Any suggestions there, Raga?
Honestly, honestly speaking, I want you to tell your bride, I have a communication with her that it's okay. It's okay that you are on the plus size. I don't think it's a problem. Like, if you can convince her that it's okay, and the posing itself, it doesn't matter anymore. You just do the posing stuff that you can do with a different size or type of body. Because so most of the time it's all about the mindset of your couples. Again, you gotta build trust, you gotta build rapport, you gotta earn their trust in order for them to trust you on how to direct them in front of camera. So for example, I have a couple of plus size or bigger size. I feel like they are all beautiful. Um, I just want you to probably tell them to relax and then try to stand up as straight as you can. Imagine like there's a string on top of your head and then do not move. So keep being very, statuesque. Sometimes people that are insecure with their body, they feel like when they feel small and like they're timid. I want you to tell them that it's fine, everything is okay. Laugh it off. That's also why it's important that you can crack some jokes. Just make them laugh. That's why they're feeling relaxed, and I think that's what matters more than the posing itself.
Interesting. Wow. Yeah, and I love your mentality about that. I also am wondering how many, for example, in Laura's case here, if she has this short a time frame, maybe she's not super close to that client. Is there enough time to develop the kind of rapport with that client to be able to get them to trust you enough to say, hey, it's really okay. You don't have to force anything here. I think you're beautiful just like you are. Can you do that in a short time span?
Oh, absolutely. Like, I think since the consultation call, I've started to build that um, kind of like mental image all the way to the couple minutes before the session, like the engagement session, about how we are going to do this. Like, you take the lead as a photographer, you
Mm,
tell them and show them that you know what you're doing.
yeah, set the
So
tone.
posing, so yeah, set the tone. Posing, angle, that's like a technical stuff. You gotta be able to do that already. So if you don't know how to do that, learn about that first. But like what I was talking about is like the mindset going into this uh, photo shoot. It's gotta be relaxing for them. Also, if you're not sure, go on YouTube, Pinterest, go on like Vogue, Elle, all of the fashion magazine where they celebrate all type of body, like Venti Beauty, like Savage X Venti. They make lingerie for all type of body. Unlike Victoria's Secret, well, they're already starting to change now to be more inclusive, but before they're just doing tall, slender white girls. But Venti Beauty is really celebrating that. Look at how they pose, and then just copy that. Take a screenshot, put it in your phone,
Hmm.
and then do that. Literally, it's so easy and it's so flattering. And then you can show the bride as well. Look, you can still be this baddie. You know what I mean? You can still be a model. Just trust me. Like I said, it's all about you taking charge of the photo shoot.
Now, I know we need to close shop here, but I want to just ask a quick question about that last comment. Are you suggesting that the photographer shows the picture of the model that they screenshot or the picture that they just captured of the subject and encourage them with that?
Both.
Okay.
So, I mean, I'm not saying that you show the model pictures to compare themselves with them. I'm saying that again, like this is like the last resort if you're very nervous about it. That I think is the easier way to do that. Just to convince them, okay, we can do this. Um, Look at all these magazines and campaigns. We're celebrating, we're being a body positive here, and I want you to trust me as a leader in this photo shoot. And I know you're going to be a beautiful, stunning bride. So let's have fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think setting the tone is important. I guess I'm just concerned in that case if you're showing another photographer's work and then a model and this person doesn't feel like a model and then that comparison game starts to happen in their head. I'm just wondering if it would create additional apprehension versus like you were talking about creating a sense of comfort just in the tone of voice and the confidence that you exude as you're posing, and then being able to show them an example and be like, oh my, and again, genuinely saying so, oh my goodness, look how stunning you are. You have no reason to be nervous here or worried about this. You look absolutely incredible. Like to me, that seems like it would be even more impactful to actually see a picture of yourself looking incredible.
Yeah, like I said, it's the last resort. I've never done that actually. But what I meant by the other fashion campaign, like the fashion magazine or bridal magazine that celebrates all types of body, I mean, learn and study the poses.
Sure. Okay.
And then do it on your photo shoot. And then when you take pictures of the actual bride and your couple, show her like, look at this. You're beautiful. We can achieve this. And it's doable.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, this has been a really fun episode. And I have to say, Rago, like major props to you too, because I love a super practical, actionable, tangible conversation where our listeners can take and apply what it is that our guests are talking about. And you've done just a really, really great job of that. So I really appreciate the super practical advice. And I appreciate everybody who chimed in, asked questions, commented. I love the involvement in the conversation from those that are listening and viewing. Thank you for that as well. Rago, just one more time, remind our listeners where they can follow you, where they can see what you're doing, see the upcoming work that will be coming out in the next, or the upcoming weeks.
Yeah, so I'm Rago Images everywhere on Instagram, ragoimages.com. That's my website, Rago Images Weddings. Nathan have mentioned a couple times. Also, I'm going to start TikTok and Pinterest if you're into that or if you're there as well. But also, I want to say thank you so much, Nathan, for giving me this platform. You have no idea actually how much you've changed a lot of lives, a lot of photographers' lives. And I hope you keep doing what you're doing. And I can't wait to see you again. We should hang out.
Oh man, that's really kind of you. It means a lot. At the end of the day, if we make a little bit of difference and those that are listening in their personal lives and their business, that's really all that matters. So it's very kind of you to say that. And absolutely. I hope we get to connect again soon. Thank you again to everybody else for chiming in, listening in today. Make sure you go follow Rago. We'll link to all the resources from today's show or in the show notes. And everybody have a wonderful day. Thanks again, Rago.